focused on real work anyway, my mom said without looking up from her tablet as I stared at the soaked floor of the garage, at my entire exhibition, dripping, curling, ruined. 12 canvases, 6 sketchbooks, and the one oversized mixed media piece I'd poured my soul into for months? Soaked like laundry in a thunderstorm. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. My brother stood in the corner, holding the garden hose, shaking it dry like a child who didn't understand what he'd done. Only he did. Oh, come on, Eliza, Dylan smirked. I thought you said art was expressive. This is just a new medium. Water damage. My chest constricted. You ruined everything. He laughed. You're so dramatic. It's just paint and paper. No, Dylan. I snapped, stepping closer. It's my career. My show is tomorrow. This was supposed to be my breakthrough. Breakthrough into what? He cut me off. Starving to death? I froze. My breath caught. And in that moment, I looked at him. Really looked, and I knew. This wasn't some harmless joke. It wasn't an accident. He wanted to hurt me. And Mom? She barely blinked. Well, she muttered, if your dream falls apart this easily, maybe it wasn't meant to last. I turned slowly. You saw him do it, and you're not even upset. She let out a heavy sigh like I'd asked her to solve world hunger. Eliza, you've been holed up in that garage for months. Painting, sketching, doodling. You act like it's some grand pursuit, but Dylan's out there working with your father, learning the business, doing something useful. He destroyed my work. It's not the end of the world. I could hardly believe it. My throat felt dry. Would you say the same if I took a sledgehammer to his car? She glanced at Dylan with a small smile. Well, he worked hard for that car. I worked hard for this too. I exploded. You just don't see it because it doesn't come with a paycheck. Enough, my dad's voice boomed from the hallway as he entered the room, tugging off his tie. What's all this screaming for? Dad, I said, voice trembling. Dylan soaked my entire exhibition. The canvases are ruined. The paper's warped. The textures are destroyed. He held up a hand and smirked. Maybe it's time you stop pretending and grow up, Eliza. Real work doesn't melt when it gets wet. That single sentence cut deeper than any insult ever could. Because he didn't just see my work as useless, he saw me as useless. I stood there, staring at the puddles that used to be my future, watching colors bleed down into the concrete like my spirit was being washed away with them. And Dylan? He just leaned against the wall, grinning. Hoped that paint was waterproof. That night, I sat alone in my room, hands in my lap, eyes empty. The pieces were unsalvageable. Even the framed ones had mold creeping in from the soaked edges. The gallery opening was 18 hours away. Michelle Conway, director of the Renford Gallery, had scheduled a feature showcase for me, titled Silence in Motion. I had sent her previews. She'd reserved the center hall for my display. My name was printed in the programs. Sponsors were attending. Local press too. And now I had nothing. Or so they thought. But what none of them knew, not my mom, not my dad, not Dylan, was that for every piece I'd painted by hand, I'd documented its journey digitally. Time-lapse, scans, notes, audio logs of my process, even voice memos about what each piece meant. And in the last few months, I'd been building something quietly. A digital gallery, an immersive, layered exhibit where the audience wouldn't just see my art, they'd feel the silence, the motion, the emotions I poured into it. It was raw. It was unfinished. But it was mine. And now, it was all I had left. So I got to work. By morning, I hadn't slept a minute. I walked into the Renford Gallery at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying a single laptop bag and a folded bundle of USB cables. Michelle spotted me immediately. Eliza! Thank God. Where's the truck? We're still waiting for your team to hang. There's been a change, I said, breathless. Something happened. Her face paled. What kind of something? My pieces. They were destroyed. She blinked. All of them. Every canvas.
Soaked.
Deliberately. Oh my God. That's Eliza, I'm so sorry. Do you want us to postpone? No, I shook my head. I brought something else. Michelle was clearly skeptical, but kind enough not to say so aloud. We've got an hour and a half until the public walk-in starts. You think it'll be ready? I plugged in the drive. I'll make it ready. At 11 a.m., the first guests entered the room, expecting canvases, framed paintings, quiet lighting, and wine glasses. Instead, they found headphones hanging on minimalist pedestals, overhead lights dimmed to a soft pulse, four side walls filled with slow projections of pencil lines turning to color, color turning to movement, movement turning to memory, and at the center, a single sculpture I'd never shown anyone before. A statue, made of melted resin and broken frame fragments. My voice played softly in the background, layered with music. I thought I'd lost everything, but I realized art isn't just what you hang on a wall. It's what survives even when the wall is taken away. Silence followed, then applause. People didn't just clap. They stood still, hands covering their mouths. Some wept. By 2 p.m., Michelle pulled me aside. Eliza, this is breathtaking, she said. I've had 3 buyers already request private meetings. A rep from Modern West is flying in tomorrow. Your name's everywhere. I nodded, speechless. Because this wasn't just a win. It was proof that even soaked in water, even shredded and smirked at, I was still enough. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. I didn't hear from my family the rest of the day. Not when my name started trending on local art blogs. Not when photos of my digital showcase made it to 3 different art magazines online. Not even when Michelle hugged me goodbye and whispered, "You just became the story of the year." It wasn't until I got home, close to 9 p.m., exhausted, still holding the laptop I'd used for the installation, that I noticed something off. My parents were waiting in the living room, and Dylan was pacing. Why didn't you tell us you had a backup? He demanded the moment I walked in. I blinked. Because I didn't owe you an explanation. You embarrassed this family. Mom cut in, arms crossed. That whole display you did, talking about your art being destroyed by someone close to you. People are asking questions. I stood by the staircase and stared at them. Was I wrong? Dad got up slowly. You made it sound like we all conspired to hold you back. You did. I said simply. You're exaggerating, he shot back. I tilted my head. Okay, let's review. Dylan hosed down all my work hours before the show. You two stood there and told me it was a sign I should quit. What part am I misrepresenting? Silence. Then Dylan said under his breath, You always have to play the victim. I turned to him.
No.
I played the artist. You played the coward. His jaw clenched. You think this little moment makes you someone important? It's not a moment, I replied. It's a beginning. That shut him up. Mom sighed. So what now? You're just going to keep making us look bad in front of the whole city? I didn't say your names, I said calmly. If people feel something when they see what I showed, maybe that says more about you than me. The next day, Michelle called me again. Eliza, I hope this isn't too sudden, but one of the investors from the exhibit reached out. She wants to sponsor a personal studio for you downtown. Full 6-month lease, no cost to you. She said your story hit her hard. Said your work reminded her of something she forgot she needed.
I didn't even know what to say.
Michelle chuckled softly. Oh, and someone from the Morning Standard wants to do an interview. You free tomorrow? I nodded, stunned. I'll make myself free. The gallery held a second viewing on Sunday for private buyers. Michelle advised me to invite some family. If only for optics, she said with a smile. I told her. I didn't invite them. But I knew they'd come. Sure enough, 2 hours in, I spotted Dylan walking in beside my parents, Dad in a two-stiff blazer, Mom in her best pearls, like this was some red carpet event and not a showcase they'd openly mocked days ago. They smiled like proud relatives. Until they saw the final installation again. the waterlogged photos, the recreated pieces, the audio confession I'd added for day 2. Some people only love you when they think the world loves you first. Dylan's smile dropped. Dad's jaw tightened. And Mom? She whispered something to him under her breath and turned toward the exit. But before she left, she looked back at me. And for the first time, she looked afraid. The interview aired Monday morning. I wasn't even awake when it hit the internet. I woke up to over 60 missed notifications, messages, shares, tags. My name was on local TV, on Twitter threads, in art forums with captions like, "From silence to spotlight, Chicago's water-damaged wonder." She lost everything, then rebuilt it overnight. Her family called her fragile. Now they want invites to her show. But the one that hit the hardest was the clip going viral online. The interviewer, a soft-spoken woman named Tasha Lane, had asked, "Do your family support your work now after everything?" And on camera, I'd looked right at her and answered, "No. My success makes them uncomfortable." It didn't take long before the gallery's security team called Michelle. "Hey, Eliza," she said, calling me from the front desk. "There's a woman here. She says she's your mother. Should I let her up?" I paused. "Is she alone?" "She's with a man. Says he's your father. Also, your brother just showed up 5 minutes later." I swallowed. "Tell them I'm not accepting visitors." Michelle hesitated. "They seem pretty upset." "Not my problem." But they didn't give up. At 4 p.m. that day, I stepped out of the gallery into the alley behind the building and nearly walked straight into my father. "You said you'd let us explain," he snapped. "No, I didn't," I said coolly, backing up. "You're dragging our family name through the mud." I laughed under my breath.
No.
I told my truth. The only reason people care is because they recognize themselves in it. "You're twisting the story." "Really?" I cut in. "Because someone else clearly didn't think so." I reached into my bag and pulled out the printed article that had been released that morning. In it, one of Michelle's assistants, who had overheard Dylan the night of the incident, had anonymously spoken to the press. "She's telling the truth. I heard her brother brag about soaking her work. Said, 'Let's see her make it now.'" I handed it to my father. He didn't take it. He just clenched his jaw, glanced at Dylan behind him, and muttered, "This is what you want? To make us look like monsters." I stepped past him. "No," I whispered. "I didn't have to. You did that all by yourselves." That night, I posted a final video to my social media. No music, just my voice. I didn't share my story for pity. I shared it because I know what it's like to be laughed at for dreaming. To be told that what you love isn't worth anything, especially by people who are supposed to protect you. But if you're someone sitting alone right now, questioning your worth because someone close to you made you feel small, don't listen to them. You are not the opinions of people who fear your light. Keep going. That post hit 1 million views in under 12 hours. But what mattered more was the messages that followed. From strangers. From artists. Even from people I'd looked up to as a teenager, who now messaged me saying, "You gave me the courage to pick up a brush again." I sat on my balcony that night, watching the lights of the city shimmer through the dusk. And for the first time ever, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt free. 2 weeks passed. The gallery kept extending my installation due to demand. The room stayed full. Art students, critics, collectors, even parents dragging their kids in and saying, "This is how you make something out of pain." I didn't cry anymore when I saw the ruined pieces digitized on the walls. They didn't feel like tragedies now. They felt like testimonies. Michelle brought news one morning that made me drop my coffee. "There's a private investor from New York visiting next weekend. He saw your projection online and asked for a tour."
Quiet.
"No media." I raised a brow. "Name?" "Thomas Ryland," she said. "Ryland Foundation. He collects artists who've faced adversity. Sponsors full residencies." I just stared at her. She smiled. "Don't faint, but if he likes what he sees, you might not be in Chicago much longer." The tour was set for Saturday afternoon. What I didn't expect was to find Dylan walking out of the gallery at 1:17 p.m., just 40 minutes before Ryland's appointment. "What are you doing here?" I asked, stepping in front of him. He shrugged. Thought I'd come see the legend in action. I stared at him. You're not allowed in here without permission. Michelle let me in, he said smugly. I told her we were fine now. Family stuff. My jaw clenched. We're not fine. And I don't want you anywhere near. Before I could finish, someone stepped out from the gallery's side office. An older man, late 50s. Trim suit. Quiet presence. Michelle followed behind him. Eliza, she called. He's early. Ryland. And he'd just watched the last 30 seconds of our exchange.
My heart sank.
But he smiled politely and offered a handshake. Mr. Ryland, he said. I assume this is your brother? Dylan stepped forward too fast. Dylan Merrick. Eliza and I are super close. Big fan of what she's doing. Honestly proud. Never had any doubt. Ryland looked at him with quiet amusement. Then at me. Is that true? He asked gently. I took a breath. The air felt sharp. No, I said clearly. He sabotaged me. He ruined my work days before the opening. He tried to humiliate me. Dylan's face twitched. Come on, Eliza. Don't be dramatic. She's not being dramatic, Michelle cut in, voice like steel. And we have the security footage to prove it. Ryland nodded once.
Slowly.
Then turned to Dylan. I think we're done here. Dylan opened his mouth, but Ryland had already stepped past him. Shall we begin the tour? He asked me. I didn't say a word to Dylan. Didn't look back. The tour was quiet, intimate, thoughtful. Ryland didn't say much at first. Just observed. Listened to the recorded voiceovers. Studied each projection carefully. Then, at the very end, he looked at me and said, Would you be interested in a year-long residency in Brooklyn? I blinked. You're offering? He smiled. There's space for you. I think you have more to say. And the world needs to hear it. My throat tightened. Yes, I whispered.
Yes.
I'd be honored. I left the gallery that day feeling weightless.
But Dylan?
He wasn't done trying. Because that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. So you're really leaving, huh? Don't forget who your family is. You'll come back down. You always do. I stared at it, then blocked the number. And in my notebook under the header Brooklyn I wrote, Let them rot in the silence they tried to keep me in. The Brooklyn residency was everything they promised and more. A clean studio with high windows. Peaceful city noise. Fresh canvas. New paint. But most importantly, freedom. No footsteps outside the door. No sighs from down the hall. No one questioning whether what I made had value. I painted every single day. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And this time, my work didn't come from pain. It came from clarity. It came from knowing who I was and what I'd overcome to even be holding that brush. The first gallery night in Brooklyn came faster than expected. A small crowd. Tight room. But energy? Electric. I called it revision. Because I wasn't just sharing new art. I was rewriting the story they tried to write for me. People stayed for hours, listening to my stories, asking real questions. My work got a small mention in Artforum Monthly. A collector offered me a deal for 3 original pieces. And Ryland? He looked at me like someone who knew he'd made the right bet. But what I didn't expect
was the text I got the next day.
From my mom. Saw your name in a magazine today. I guess you proved us wrong. No apology. No ownership. Just control dressed up as a compliment. So I replied, You didn't just doubt me. You tried to erase me. That's not something I forget. And it's not something I forgive. I hit send, then turned my phone off for the whole weekend. 3 months later, I flew back to Chicago for one reason.
To speak at an art school seminar.
Michelle had arranged it. A special alumni homecoming lecture. And guess who showed up halfway through?
Dylan.
Wearing some designer button-down, leaning in the back of the room, trying to look interested. When the Q&A started, I saw him raise his hand. And I nodded, knowing exactly what was coming. Eliza, he said, trying to smile. How do you think people should deal with unsupportive environments? Like when people just don't get your vision? There were chuckles from the audience, clearly aware of the backstory. I leaned on the podium. I used to think the best way was to earn their approval, I said. To prove them wrong so they'd finally accept you. Dylan folded his arms, smug. But I learned something better. I continued. You don't have to prove yourself to people who enjoy watching you drown. You just learn to swim without them. The room went still. Then someone clapped. Then another. And another. Dylan didn't say anything else. He just walked out. Later that night, I visited my old neighborhood. Stood across the street from our family house.
It looked smaller now.
Dimmer. Mom opened the curtains, saw me, and froze. But I didn't wave. I didn't approach. I just turned around, walked away, and never looked back. 6 months later, I held a solo show in Manhattan. Full press attendance. Live music. An entire exhibit dedicated to artists who'd been told no. One wall featured a single quote. She's too sensitive for the real world. And under it my painting titled, Still Here. People took pictures. They whispered. They nodded. And for the first time, the silence in the room wasn't heavy. It was sacred. I didn't need revenge anymore. Because I had something better. A life they couldn't reach.